Let's talk about leadership. I think this is a really interesting topic at the moment because there's loads of theory on leadership as to the type of leader you need to be, but actually none of those leadership books factored in COVID-19 and what we're going through at the moment. So it'd be good to get your view on leadership, what's changing, and some of the things that business owners should be thinking about.
In terms of leadership at the moment, I think we're all looking to somebody to essentially to lead us, to be the person who remains calm, remains confident about the future and kind of guides us in the right way. So, people might not have liked Boris Johnson before he, became Prime Minister. And I guess he was seen maybe as a bit of a joke to some people because of the things he did and the way he behaved. But actually, he's been a really good leader through all of this, hasn't he? He's stayed strong. He's put some good things in place in terms of the furlough scheme and the daily updates. And I think he has shown that he is a true leader. And I think that's true for people in organisations. You can just hide behind COVID and not talk to your employees, or you can get out there, you can communicate with them and make sure that they're well looked after, that they're confident in you, in your vision of the future.
Yeah, I completely agree with that style of leadership you've just described there, which is leading from the front. And I think that's what people aspire to. I think there's also a balance there where, because there is a lack of certainty about the future, I think people don't expect business leaders to have all the answers. That's not to say that you simply say you don't know what the future holds and therefore you put doubt into your team. But I think there's a balance with giving confidence, but also being realistic and saying, actually, there is still a lot of uncertainty. I think that people will see through that really quickly otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might not know the answers to something, but there's no reason why you can't say, actually, we don't know that yet. You're right, it's all uncertain, but perhaps you can put options in place like, okay, so if this happens, this is what we're going to do, and if this happens, this is what we're going to do, so that it shows people that actually you've considered the options of what might happen and you've put things in place to counteract that.
I'm just thinking as well about things that used to be in place up until COVID-19, like people used to talk about open door policies, with bigger businesses in particular, having an open door policy, you can approach them anytime. I'm just wondering, with now remote working, how business leaders and owners are going to still make themselves as accessible. Maybe they've got an open Zoom meeting constantly that people can drop into. I don't know, but have you given that any thought? Because some of that was all about culture within businesses, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, and I think that line of communication can still be there, but just in a different way. So, yeah, there are organisations that have a Zoom meeting every Monday morning, for example. If you want to come along, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And even with people who are on furlough can do that because they're not actually working, they're not generating income for their business. But what it is it's a bit of just a forum to stay connected with your team, check on each other. So that can work really well. Managers updating with their team, with their own individual teams at the end of each week, I think is really important to find out how they've been that week, what challenges they've faced, what they've achieved, and then perhaps talk about what's happening the next week so they can finish the week on a high, knowing what they've achieved and what they've got to achieve next week. And likewise, you can put groups of people into bubbles, if you like, so they kind of all work together, they look out for each other, they communicate with each other, and perhaps one of those people will, update the manager if they're a large team. So I think that open door policy can still remain, it's just in a different way.
Any other changes that you think are going to happen positively as a result of COVID-19 when it comes to HR and businesses?
I think there'll be much more flexible working allowed and widely accepted. If you work from home, people are going to accept that you're working rather than before, if you said you were working from home, people were like, oh, yeah, kind of thing. But yeah, flexible working will be much more widely accepted. I think that owners of organisations are going to have to learn to trust their employees more. So there's one business owner I know that doesn't like people working from home because he thinks they're not doing their jobs properly. So for me, that's his management. He's not managing his employees if he doesn't know what they're doing and what they're achieving. So I think there just needs to be a bit more trust, and as I said earlier, a bit more managing by objectives, so looking at the outcome rather than actually how many hours somebody's working. Investment in technology I think is going to be needed because, with many more people working from home, they're going to need, perhaps a laptop where they had a desktop computer at work, or maybe they shared printers. So I think there's going to be a huge investment in technology to enable people to work from home.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about the objectives, because I'm seeing that within the discussions I'm having with business owners, much more focus about key performance indicators. And that's something that actually business owners typically stay away from, because maybe there's a consideration that key performance indicators feels like a form of micromanagement. But it isn't. It isn't at all. It's just a way of being able to measure performance and make sure that's working towards the business objectives that you're trying to achieve. So completely agree with you. That outcome focus, I think, is a really good thing that businesses are beginning to think about more and more when it comes to their staff, and it makes it easier to manage staff when it comes to performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from an employee's perspective, employees like to know how they're doing and what they need to achieve. So they're in control of their work, if you like. And again, I think that will really help towards managing mental health, so that employees really know where they stand and what they need to achieve. One of the other changes I think there should be, and I think there will be, more investment in managers and how managers manage other people and how managers manage people's mental health. So, there's many organisations that offer mental health training online, for example, and it just takes a couple of days, probably less if it's online actually, to really give those managers the tools to be able to manage the well-being of their teams.